it's going to work or not. Okay. Where do you have to be to avoid that glare? I'm hoping that far. Alright. Maybe a little more, I don't know. How's that? Okay, this is another report. There's been a lot of reports on YouTube, and none of them are from Google or from YouTube, just people on there that say they've had their channels polled with no explanation and they can't get them back, and Google won't talk to them. And they had a report that the Federal Trade Commission had come in with some kind of a ruling that they couldn't profit off of 13 people that are 13 and under on there. They couldn't profit anymore, and they were trying to control their profits. And in other words, and so it looks like maybe the people that aren't making the money, like, you know, Figurado and Chink and, you know, the Young Turks and Secular Talk and Debbie and so on, we're all safe because they're profitable. But people like me, I may be gone. I don't know. I said a whole lot have been polled. So I don't know. This may be your last report. You never know. I hope not, but you never know. My last song I do on here, I don't know. I guess I go to SoundCloud. I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, the problem they have, a lot of the time people are talking about Buttigieg. You know, he's had a big surge. And this, I think there's a little bit of deception going on. I notice a lot of the really hard, you know, core Sanders supporters, the people in the Northeast, a lot of the report on, have been saying that Buttigieg is the wrong person. You know, and how he came out, I noticed he was way ahead of him by one poll in New Hampshire about a week ago or something. I noticed he's gone down in New Hampshire. He's still big in Iowa. Anyway, it appears that the reason for this big surge with Buttigieg has to do with the CNN Corporation, with Time Warner Corporation, essentially. They were complaining that, well, that there's no one in the Democrats that can beat Trump. Actually, their real complaint is there's no swamp rats. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard knocked one of them off, you know, and Kamala Harris knocked her down pretty good. And then Trump, with the Ukraine investigation, pretty much knocked Biden out. Or not, Biden knocked himself out with all his gaffes, whatever, but he's pretty much knocked out. Their complaint is, and those two are swampers, that there's no swamp rats that can win. That's the problem. So they've been pouring money into that's why they want Bloomberg. You notice they don't mention Steyer. Steyer is pretty much identical to Bloomberg. He's real smart and he has a whole lot of money. But they say Bloomberg, oh, that's going to just flip everything. You notice they don't say a word about Steyer's. I think the reason why, because Steyer's has pretty much a Ross Perot, Bernie Sanders platform. He's on his, every time he gets on and talks, they let him talk 8 minutes the last time. Yang, they wouldn't let him talk either. But anyway, Steyer's gets in there and talks about campaign finance reform and term limits, everything across the board to stop corruption pretty much. You say you have to start from the outside and work in, which he's right. You know, the people are the most powerful. The best tool against corruption is the people, but you have to get the people's head out of their sand, which that's next to impossible. The mainstream public, good luck with that. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot of things wrong with Buttigieg. I mean, I've looked at him, and basically Buttigieg is pretty much the same thing as a corporate lawyer. You know, I mean, it's like Alito and Roberts. They put him in the Supreme Court, and they support it, and W. Bush put him in there to protect his oil business. You know, they get in there, and then the lobbyists, that way they preserve the campaign finance corruption, and so the McCain-Feingold law, they threw it out. And that's, you know, limits on campaign money. Well, the campaign finance corruption, they come in, they keep the Tesla out of every state. They stop the sales of it everywhere. And they don't even live in these states they go into. They come in there and they keep it out. And so that protects Bush's oil business. That's why he put 2 corporate lawyers in the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts, Samuel Alito, put them in there. They're corporate lawyers. They have real ugly biases. It's like I say, they're in there to represent corporate America and stand up for the corporate America's interests. Just like, you know, a justice is supposed to be a moderate. They're supposed to weigh both sides. You know, both sides are supposed to be an equation. Someone like a corporate lawyer just has one interest, and that's corporate America. They don't care about anything else. It's like, you know, like I say, it's a divorce case. When a real aggressive, sharkish lawyer that's going to fight for one side, we have another attorney. You know, if I for this side of the Supreme Court, you are supposed to stick someone in the Supreme Court You know, it's just a big shark and fighting for the corporates, and that's what they did. Well, anyway, what's going to happen if Buttigieg gets in there? And I've been watching him. I don't like him, I've got to admit. If I do a report on him, and it may not be the most objective report I've ever done, because I can't stand him. But anyway, but you put him in there, it's going to be another corporate lawyer. Not only are we going to have corporate lawyers in the Supreme Court, we're going to have one as the president. And that's why he's been surging. They've been pouring campaign money in there, and they've been bucking him up, the Time Warner through CNN and the major media, the corporate-owned media, have been bucking him up one side down the other. They've got a big old surge going. And if he gets in there, that'll be the end of stopping corruption. He's diametrically opposed to Sanders. Bernie Sanders. He's diametrically opposed to Ralph Nader. He's diametrically opposed to Michael Moore. He's diametrically opposed to Jesse Ventura. He's diametrically opposed to Jerry Brown. Anybody that wants to stop corruption in any way, shape, or form, Jill Stein, you know, and he's diametrically opposed. Okay, I've been watching him, I've been listening to him, and he made one commentary I thought was a little interesting when he first got up there, and he says, he gets in there and he goes, Trump wants to bring back what we had in the 60s and 50s, 40s, whatever. You know, the big economic surge where we had a high standard of living. We had a high standard of living back when, right after FDR. In other words, FDR set the groundwork, the foundation for that high standard of living, that big surge that was created right after World War II, where everybody had a lot. Like I say, the average salary $95,000 a year, and the working class in today's dollars, $95,000 a year. Because what is it now? About 60. Some say 60,000. In a lot of places, about 30,000. But anyway, he's claiming you can't have that back. Okay, but now what's he doing when they say that? And I've been listening to people like that, and I've been watching Thomas Friedman's another one. He's a syndicated columnist. He's another one. They're dishonest. And what are they doing when they say that? And they have an axe to grind. And someone challenged Thomas Friedman on the Phil Donahue show, and I noticed he got real hot-tempered. He got real mad, was barking at him and shouting at him, and I don't like Thomas Friedman at all. He's another one. You know, I just can't stand him. They lie. They're dishonest. But anyway, usually if they act that way, they're insecure, and they know they're not telling the truth, and they know they have an axe to grind. But anyway, basically when he argues that way, well, what Thomas Friedman will argue, he'll say, well, the Industrial Revolution, this is the way he argues. We had all the cotton pickers, right? You know, and they had the Industrial Revolution. And so you had a bunch of people taken away from their jobs because they started using the cotton gin or whatever you call it. They'll do it automatically. Automation, well, they said they picked everybody up. The Industrial Revolution picked everybody up and said they went to the factories and worked. Well, Thomas Friedman's claim is that with this last revolution, the high-tech revolution, they didn't pick anybody up. So you have all this high tech and then all that. Okay, now that's not quite the truth. I've been watching that. They're lying. I've been looking into that. They're full of crap. And Buttigieg's got the same problem. And what they're doing, you notice that they've had automation in Japan since Astro Boy back in 1964. That was a Japanese cartoon. They've been working on robots since '64. I think they have much of an unemployment problem. But what they're doing is they're exonerating. They want to exonerate. They have a corporate bias. A big butt ugly on the side of the businessman. In other words, if you watch the People's Court, they'll argue on the side of the businessman every time, no matter what happens. You know, a blind man takes his dog in the restaurant, they throw him out. You know, even though the blind man has a right to have his seeing eye dog in the restaurant, they'll always argue on the side of the businessman every time. It's an ugly bias. He'd make a good corporate lawyer, and that's what he needs to do. Buttigieg needs a new gig. He needs to get in there and become a corporate lawyer or something else. He shouldn't be president. Okay, what else is wrong with Buttigieg? A whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, he's basically the same thing. He's basically a Republican disguised as a Democrat, but not only that, he's the hard right. He's the big corporatist, butt ugly right. He's the same thing as Mitt Romney, pretty much. The same thing as the damnable W. Bush, same damn thing. Like Figueroa said, he's arrogant and ignorant and narrow-minded. Yeah, I mean, narrow-minded as hell. And that's the last person you want as president. The only liberal trait he has that I can see is the fact that he's gay. But that, to me, there's no other thing in there. And We think because he's gay that everybody will vote for him as a Democrat, and that's not smart, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, now he's got a problem with the black race too, and I don't think this is any figment of anyone's imagination either. He told the black race, "I don't want your vote." There's a bunch of black people rebelling, and he said, "Well, I don't want your vote." Well, basically, what is he saying with that? It's like you're deplorables, you're untouchables, you're basement dwellers, like Hillary was talking. I don't care whether they get your vote or not. I don't need it. I don't want it. Well, what he's saying is, I don't care what you want. I'm going to do things my way. And if you watch that, I mean, there's evidence to back that up. When you heard that him and Swalwell were arguing in one of the debates, and Swalwell comes in there and he says he had a problem with some of the injustice towards a black man in South Bend. They had to deal with the police. I don't know what it was. And Swalwell says, what you do, you fire the chief, you fire the police commissioner. You fire all the police involved. That's how you clean it up. You get rid of them and make sure they don't get another job anywhere. Make sure they're black marked. That's how you handle it. Well, you notice he wouldn't even talk back. He wouldn't even explain himself because he didn't agree with him, and he supports the police to the detriment of the black race. Put it this way, I think if Buttigieg gets in there and that happens, what's going to happen? The black race is going to miss Donald Trump. Well, I'm sure glad they're against him anyway. Okay. What else? Okay, now, but when you have a narrow-minded, arrogant, okay, he's against campaign finance reform. He came out and said that. He's against term limits. He's against everything that has to do with draining the swamp. What else? There were several other things. I can't remember what they were, but anyway. Bias against the consumer is a swamper's dream. Okay, against term limits, so that already. AMA problem. Okay, you have the problem with the AMA. Okay, the basic problem with the AMA, and people argue, well, but you can't afford that. But how are you going to pay for that land? And on this, you pay for it by reducing all the corruption in the AMA, where they steal money from everybody and they steal your one man, one vote to the detriment of the 99%. That's how you get the price down. You get in there and you stop the high cost of the ambulance takes you according to Denver $3,000. You put a stop to that. The $85 for an aspirin that the insurance industry has to pay. You get tort reform so that the trial lawyers don't keep stopping blocking tort reform with campaign money. You get tort reform, that reduces it. You get the cost down the pharmaceutical industry, you get rid of copyrights and trademarks on the pharmaceuticals, you get more competition with them, you get more non-traditional types of treatment, and you get Canadian drugs accessible so people buy them, and you stop letting the AMA control the numbers of people who get into med school, and you open the doors up so more people get into med school. And that way, and you stop hospital mergers, all those things. What happens when a hospital merges? Everybody gets laid off. You don't have competition in stadium and technological advancement. You aren't strong in the international market. You don't have state-of-the-art equipment because there's no incentive to get a CAT scan that could cure cancer, all in one. And just hypothetically speaking, because if they're all the same, if they're all one hospital, there's no incentive for technological advancement. The prices go way up. Everybody gets laid off. It's just a big Buttafuoco job just across the board. And the cost is so high that you can't afford to give it to everybody, and the taxpayer can't pay it. But that's where you get rid of that superficial, ridiculously, unrealistically high price that the AMA uses to screw the whole country blind. Okay, now if Buttigieg gets in and argues, he's not going to do a thing about that. He's going to let it go. He's going to be blind to it and argue it doesn't exist and probably fool half the public. Okay, what did I forget on that? I think you got everything. All right, it's police problem, South Bend, Indiana. It's corporate money. Okay, the student loan problem. I think the last one's over here. Oh, he says on student loans, they're going to change the interest rate. You need to get rid of student loans because of all the corruption in the government. Well, they took jobs overseas and willfully took them over there, so there weren't any jobs left, so nobody can pay their loan back because they screwed everybody, and that's the government that did it, so we've got a claim against the government, essentially. I'll do another report on that later. Anyway, but you need to get rid of the loans, not just change the interest rate. Okay, so they want a swamper. They want someone in there, they want Buttigieg right now. That's why they put Bloomberg in there. But they're keeping quiet about Stiers. He's the swamp's fighter. He's somebody that'll help everybody. He's right in his platform is a little bit, it overlaps Sanders is pretty good and Ross Perot both. If you can trust Stiers, I don't know, but he's a billionaire. I don't know if you can trust him or not, but his platform has sounded real good so far. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about, you have this thing with Schiff. Steve Elton brought out something on the Fox News the other night. Basically, we know that the Time Warner Corporation profits from cheap labor, and they're involved in a pact to shut up, reports about the Mexican race that comes in and brings drugs in and rapes people and racks up crimes across the border 100 times. They won't report on it, so you figure they probably profit from it. Well, it turns out Schiff has taken a whole bunch of money, campaign money from the Time Warner Corporation, and they've probably been telling him, hey, we'll give you this campaign money if you'll knock Trump off, because Trump's closing the border. They don't want that Mexican trade deal in there because that sends jobs overseas and jobs to Mexico, and they want to keep doing it. And they don't want the China trade deal because they lose money there temporarily and they're short-sighted. So they want Trump out of there for all the Time Warner Corporation wants him out of there for all three reasons. So what are they doing? Pouring a bunch of campaign money into Adam Schiff. He's picking it up, and that's why you have the impeachment thing. So Adam Schiff is in there, and no one brings this out, and he's talking about, Trump, he's involved in bribery, he's involved in extortion, and they make it. The only one that's involved in bribery is Adam Schiff when he takes campaign money and then knocks Trump off to help the Time Warner Corporation pad their wallet to the detriment of every working class person. And Adam Schiff ought to be on the stand to answer all this stuff. All right. Another thing, ABC News made a mistake the other night. I noticed they were trying to prove Trump was crooked, and they said, well, Ukraine even called that they didn't have their money for the arms that Trump was extorting them with, supposedly extorting them with, and they didn't have it until after the whistleblower went public. After the whistleblower went public, they didn't make the call until after that. Well, it turns out when they made the call, they wanted to know why they didn't have their aid yet. So what does that do? Their military aid that Trump was supposedly extorting, that lets them know that Trump had not told them any reason why they weren't getting it. So what does that do? That exonerates Trump. So what did ABC News do? They goofed. That's what I think. They just scored a point for Trump. They didn't even realize it. Okay, another thing I was going to say. Okay, I guess I made my case against Schiff pretty well. I'm not going to need to say any more about that. We had another claim in there that Hillary brought out that Tulsi Gabbard was somehow, the Russians were grooming her as a candidate. I think what her claim was that the Russians would take Hillary would take Tulsi Gabbard, she'd run as an independent, she'd knock off, Trump and the Russians were in bed together because of Trump's business deals that he had before he got in. Trump and the Russians are in bed together, and then Trump's going to let the Russians do whatever they want. And so if Tulsi Gabbard got in as a spoiler and kept the Democrats out, that would help Russia. That was her claim. Well, actually, Hillary does have some merit to her claim. There is some merit to that. I mean, basically, I've been studying Russia. What we learned, and like I say, the guy from Poland, professor from Poland, and he says basically the way Russia operates, they only see and they only understand one thing, and that's a gun to their head. But he was talking about the hardliners like Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Stalin, Lenin, so on, the real hardline, the days of the secret police and all that. He says all they understand is a gun to their head, and basically, if there's not a gun to their head, it's opportunity. And that they have, and that Schiff, whatever his name was, that guy that there was a Politburo member who had defected from Russia, and he knew the Politburo pretty well. He's real smart. Like I say, he talks like Phil Donahue and Sanders. He's real smart. He talks a long time, knows a lot about politics. It goes on a long time, but he said that their goal is to take over the world, and they see the U.S. as the only stumbling block to doing that, but they see it as something that's going to happen, 30 years, 40 years, 100 years. But their ultimate goal is to take over the world. So what they do, they see a crack, they look at a country as like a rock, They see a crack in the rock, and they're like a stone cutter, and they take their hammer and chisel and break the rock where the crack is. And essentially, I noticed that RT is trying to promote the Sanders types and the Ross Perot, you know, the progressives, and the Russian television, and what they think they can get a rebellion going, or, you know, like the apartheid in South Africa, you can get a rift going, and they try to exacerbate the rift until they got a crack and they can topple the country. So I think Hillary does have some merit to that. They see the Tulsi Gabbards as opportunity, but actually you couldn't crack the country except that if Tulsi doesn't get in, and Sanders doesn't get in, or Stiers doesn't get in, or Swamp Drainer doesn't get in. Again, eventually the standard of living will keep going down. If Biden gets in and he supports those trade deals and puts another TPP back in that's in bed with corruption and the swamp and the corporates, the standard of living will go down more. And if it goes down enough, you will have a government overthrow, because the government doesn't meet the needs of the people. So really the Tulsi Gabbards and the Ross Perot types, Ross Perot's ideology and the Michael Moore's and all those, they're preventive medicine, essentially, for any trouble Russia could make. I mean, Russia's probably looking at it, but, you know, there's nothing. Just having Tulsi Gabbard in as president, you know, as running as independent wouldn't be enough for Russia to topple the U.S. But like I say, if things get worse, they get bad enough, they might be able to, who knows, but you wouldn't want the standard of living to go any lower than it is, you know, as a poverty level and all that. And that's why we need the Tulsi Gabbards. That's why we need the Jill Steins. That's why we need the Tom Stierses. That's what the Bernie Sanders, I say him. Anyway, I think that's all I got to say on this. I don't know how much I left off. I hope not much. But anyway, Buttigieg is the wrong man. Boy, is he ever the wrong man. I don't like him. It's hard to even be fair when I don't like somebody, but I hope he doesn't get in there. Thanks for watching.